Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation on Frank Sinatra. For those of you who don't know a lot about his life, you're going to learn about a lot about it in the next 55 or so minutes. And for those of you who are familiar with his life, you're going to learn some details that you might not have known before. So let's get started. We're going to, I'm going to mute everyone here. So we're going to, first of all, he was born in 1915 in the state of New Jersey, which is not known as one of our best states. It's a working collar, we call it blue collar working class area. He came from Italy, and a lot of Italians emigrated from Italy to the United States in the early part of the 20th century. So my grandparents emigrated, and Frank Sinatra's parents did the same. And that's sort of how a lot of Italians got here, end of the 19th, early part of the 20th century. Now, Frank Sinatra would not have been where he was at without his mother. He had a very strong mother who loved her son very much. Dolly, as she was called, that wasn't her real name, but they called her Dolly. She actually did some local politics. But do you know what she did? She was we say in English, a firecracker. If someone's a firecracker, they are strong and fiery. She had a really interesting personality, and she helped Frank. And you know what she did to get Frank's career launched? We say launch, rockets launch, but you can launch a career as well. Is she was friends with the local Italians who happened to be mobsters. Do you know what a mobster is? A mobster is someone associated with the mafia. And she knew she had connections because she was in local politics in New Jersey. New Jersey has a very long tradition of dirty politics, just like Chicago. Chicago, New Jersey, and New York are some of the worst, along with Boston. These were our early big cities, and this is where you get a lot of corruption in politics. And she organized with a local mob boss who was also from her city back in Sicily, which is where she was born, or where she was born. She organized auditions for her son, because Italians stick together at this time. So it was really easy to negotiate this, and they really liked Frank's voice. And so Frank started by playing in venues. Venues are musical places. Started by playing venues that were run by the mob, run by the mafia. And honestly, and there's a theme that runs all the way through this, is that here's a photo of him when he was younger. This is actually near his audition, when he had this audition for the mob. The mob play a huge role. And in fact, if it weren't for the mob, he probably wouldn't have had a big career. Believe it or not, they single-handedly, we say single-handedly, catapulted him, brought him up to fame in a really remarkable way. Now, here we have a photo much later. This is, I think, in the mid-70s, sometime in the 70s. This is an infamous photo. Now, we have two types of photos. You can have a famous photo, and you can have an infamous, but we say infamous photo. And this photo is infamous because it's taken with all of the top mobsters in the US, from Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, and mainly New York area. So you have men like Sam Giancana and all these very infamous mobsters. Now, what's interesting about this is that Frank loved these guys, but he tried to hide this relationship from the government. And so on many occasions in the 70s and early 80s, he has called, he had a problem in Nevada, where Las Vegas is. We'll talk about Nevada. But the point is, he had some problems. El Capo, the capos, that's right. Petrucci said the capos. So in Italian, you say I capi. These are the heads. Capo is head. And so these guys played a really important role, but Frank tried to hide it from the public. because it wasn't cool to have people who are murderers, which all these guys commissioned people to die, hundreds. It wasn't acceptable, but somehow it, you know, there was a reputation, there was a little bit of rumor about it, but no one could pin him down. But this photo is, you can't deny it. Here we have a photo, and it's shown to him later. And you know what he says? And that he's in Congress, he's at Capitol Hill, he's testifying about his relationship with the mafia. And he says, listen, folks, this is his answer. It's really funny. Are you good friends with these guys? Listen, as with all my fans, I take thousands of photos, hundreds of photos every month. How do I know who everyone is? He knew exactly who these guys were because he partied with them. He did business with them, and he went to Cuba a lot with them. And I'll tell you why he went to Cuba. He went to Cuba because before Las Vegas, the biggest place to be was Cuba. That's where gambling was legalized and fun, and it was actually outside the United States. So Havana, Cuba was built by the mafia. And if you would go to the old National, it's called El Nacional in Havana, it's this old star, you know, every big city has its iconic older hotel. It was the National in Havana, and Frank would meet these mobsters and he would perform for them privately. He would get paid thousands and thousands of dollars. But when Cuba and Castro, Fidel Castro, took over in 1959, January 1st, well, that's quite a happy new year. January 1st, 1959, the rebels with Che Guevara and Castro, they all come down from the mountains. They call them the guerrillas, and took over. They had a political coup from the president at the time, who was actually popular and supported by the US. When that came down, all the casinos were closed and they moved to Las Vegas. And the way the mob understood this, if you want to make money, you hire the best talent. And they brought Sinatra to what's known as the Sands. The Sands Hotel was the first big hotel in Las Vegas. Now, I've been to Las Vegas 5 or 6 times. I don't know if you've been there. The Sands is no longer there. It's been rebuilt. But it is a place with a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, and a lot of entertainment. If you want good entertainment, even if you don't gamble, if you want good entertainment, you can get great entertainment there. It's expensive. The tickets are $200 now or so, but it's really good entertainment. So the Sands Hotel was built by the mob. And the story, the history of the Sands is an amazing history that we don't have time to talk about. But it's marked and tarnished with controversy. The building of that, because it was too long, it was over budget. This was millions of dollars back in the 50s, early 50s. And this is where Frank Sinatra made his name. And he brought with him what was known as the Rat Pack, R-A-T, Rat Pack, P-A-C-K, 2 words. The Rat Pack was these group. Dean Martin is probably the most famous of these. He's also Italian, but he changed his name to be more American, which, by the way, if you were Italian or Polish or Russian, you had these really strange last names that said you're a foreigner. A lot of these people changed their names. So if you were Irish, you didn't really need to change. It was sort of similar. English, you didn't need to change. German, you didn't need to change. Jewish, Russian, Polish, and Italians often changed their name to look American and to fit in so they wouldn't be biased. So Dean Martin, that's not his real name, but he changed it to that so it looks very American. And so they start there. They make a lot of money in Vegas. Yeah, Patricia is making a comment. I want to hear from Patricia later at the end of this. So here's Sinatra. Here's another photo of Sinatra at the Sands. You can see it here. This was his iconic place. The mob made a fortune off him, but Sinatra also made a lot of money. He was making $200,000 a month in 1950s and 60s. Now that is millions today. That's just really crazy money at that time, because the average salary was probably what, $200, $400 a month. He's making 200,000. It was just really a lot of money. And he got his name. Now, there's a lot that we can talk about with his career. He fell out of the mob. So, you know, when you hitch yourself, when you hitch your wagon to someone so closely, you rise and fall with them. So it was very risky for him to tie himself so closely to the mob. And I'll tell you what happened. Almost cost him his life. And then we'll get to some of the music. In 1961, in 1959, John F. Kennedy declares his intention to run for the Democratic Party's president. He becomes the Democratic nominee against Richard Nixon. And it's Kennedy and Nixon, two young, very up-and-coming, very dynamic politicians in the U.S. And Frank Sinatra partied with JFK when he was a senator. He would bring him out and they would have wild parties. Now, I can't go into detail on how wild they were because this is being recorded. But these were wild parties. And JFK loved Frank, loved his parties. But interestingly, Frank Sinatra helped get JFK elected because there was one, it was neck and neck. We say in English, neck and neck in the voting. The one state that was really critical was Illinois. Illinois is in the center, and the capital, or the biggest city, is Chicago. Chicago, Illinois, is where they needed the votes. And guess what? Frank Sinatra was very close to the Chicago mob boss, Sam Giancana. Now, Sam Giancana, Frank went to Sam and said, listen, I need to ask you a favor. Now, keep in mind, Frank and Sam were doing business. They built casinos together in Las Vegas. Nobody knew it. You know what would happen? The mob would give Frank a lot of money and say, build that. We own 50%, but you're the only name on the contract. So they were hidden owners. They couldn't be public about it. So it was actually 50%, but Frank, accordingly on paper, owned all of it. Frank went to the mob boss, Sam Giancana. I'm sorry, I don't have a photo. We can find a photo. And he said, listen, we need more votes in Chicago. It's going to be really close. If we win Chicago, we win Illinois, and our man, JFK, gets elected. So Sam Giancana spent millions, literally millions of dollars of his own money to buy votes in Chicago to get JFK elected. He was elected. He won Illinois by a razor, was elected, and won the state, and so JFK won the presidency. Now, when you spend that kind of money, you're looking for favors. You don't do it for free. The mob never did that for free. His favor was the following, and he told Frank, he said, listen, the FBI is following me 24 hours a day. I want it to stop. Frank said, no problem, no problem. I'll talk to the president. Guess what? The president's brother was the head of the FBI, or the CIA. I'm sorry, he was the attorney general, the head lawyer, the attorney general, which is over all of the, sort of crime and punishment and all that sort. And you know what he did? Instead of relaxing the observance of Sam Giancana, he increased it. In other words, life got worse after spending millions. And he went to Frank and said, listen, this is on you. And he said it in such a way that Frank hid for 3 months in a hotel. He stopped performing. He was scared. He thought he was going to die. And there are a lot more stories related to these 3 months or so, but it was really a low moment in his life. But let's get started with a few of the songs. Now, one of these was requested, I Did It My Way. And so I thought what we would do, this is obviously an iconic song. Let's go ahead and play it. Now, does anyone have any questions before we get started on the music? We're going to play some Frank. All right, let's get started. So here we go. All right, this one's actually kind of, yeah, let's do it. It's the first one, so let's play it. Here we are. All right, can you all see this? This is I Did It My Way. We're going to start from the beginning. Now, here's what we're going to do, because this is a language course. This is speaking. It's designed to help you with your English. We're going to listen to the song once. I'm then going to explain some of the difficult passages that you might not know or you're not sure about. Then we'll play it again. So here we go. You can enjoy a little Sinatra. Tell me if you can hear this or not. I hope you can, but I'm not actually sure. I might have to switch speakers. Let's try it. Now, the end is near. Uh-oh. Oh, yeah, it is here. Can you hear that or not? Can someone tell me, can you hear that? Let's just see if you can hear it. Tell me if you hear this.
Hello, everyone. I didn't hear.
Okay, no one can hear it. So let's do this. I'm experimenting with the microphone. Let me change the microphone audio. Now tell me if you can hear this.
No, professor, no. I don't hear.
Oh, geez. What about the others? Can you hear this? No.
No, I
First
didn't
time
hear.
I can hear it the first time, not the second one.
Okay. Was it loud enough when you heard it or not? I'm nervous about this. All right, let me
Not
switch.
loud.
All right, let me go as loud as I can. Damn. All right, let's try it one more time. I'll go as loud as I can here. I'll go as loud as I can here. I'm not sure this is going to work, though. Let's see here. Let me try the system panel.
But story about Frank Sinatra is very amazing. Yeah.
It is quite amazing, isn't it? Let's see here. Yeah, I don't want to do all this now. All right. Let's try it one more time. If not, I might have to send you the link and you play it along with me. So why don't I send you the link? If you can't hear it, then you can mute you and you can play the song along with us. Let's do that. So let me send it in the chat. Here's the link. Can you all open that? We'll play it together, at least so you can listen to it. But keep yourself muted, please. All right, ready? Here we go. I'll make it a bit bigger on mine. Oh. All right, let's play it. Ready? Here we go. So now the end is near, so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear, I'll state my case, of which I'm certain. I've lived a life that's full. I traveled each and every highway, and more, much more than this, I did it
my way. Friends, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway. More, much more than this, I did it my way. Yes, there were times I'm sure you knew when I bit off more than I could chew. But through it all, when there was doubt, the trouble, I've loved, I've laughed and cried, I've had my fill, my share of weeping, and now, as tears subside, I find it all so amusing to think I did all that, and may I say, not in a shy way, oh no, not me. I did it my way. For I did the man. He got not himself.
Okay, we can stop there. It's more or less the end of the song. Now, what I'm going to do is talk about some of the lyrics. I think this is really interesting to learn some of the language. And a lot of the things we're going to talk about are things you can use. So this isn't archaic language. It isn't old language. This is language we use today. But maybe you don't know some of these words and phrases. So let's go ahead and try them now. I'm going to do something different now. I'm going to share my screen. Just, I think. So my way, here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Great.
we can.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and discuss this. And if you have any questions, of course, you can ask. So the final curtain, and now the end is near. So I face the final curtain. Now, this is a very specific reference. Let me get my, here. This is the final curtain. When you have a performance and they close the curtain after the performance, that's the end of the show. But what Frank is saying metaphorically is that this is the end of life. He's talking about the end of his life, and he's giving an account of how he lived his life. At least that's what the song is saying. My friend, I'll state it clear. I'll be direct. I'm not going to, beat around the bush. I'm going to tell you directly. Let me just. We have some. All right, so I'll state my case of which I'm certain. If you state your case, you're making a point. That's what you're basically doing. Let's go down. Now, this is interesting. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled. Let me mute everyone here. All right, everyone's muted. Let's keep yourself muted if you can, please, unless you have a question. I've lived a life that's full. I've traveled each and every highway. Now, why is it interesting about highways? This was published. This song was, oh, well, we don't have it here, but it was 1969. It was recorded in 68, published in 1969. And what's interesting, in the United States, highways were a really big deal. Now, I will just tell you very briefly, if you can see this here, the Eisenhower Project. Dwight Eisenhower became president of the United States in 1952. During World War II, he was the Allied General Supreme Commander. And what he noticed when he was fighting the Germans is their Autobahn system. The Autobahn is a fancy way of saying interstate or highway system. They could move tanks and military equipment very quickly from one side of the country to the other, because they had superior roads. Now, this general commander of the US became president a few years later, in 1952, and he immediately set out to build a complex highway system that you see now. It was billions of dollars, which at that time was a lot of money. And he basically wanted to connect East Coast and West Coast, just like the Germans had done, in case of war, in case we had needed some strategic movement of equipment. So if you notice, there are three ways you can reach east to west. You've got the bottom part. If you start on the left side, you've got California. So if you look at the bottom, it's hard to see there, but that is San Diego. At the very bottom, you can see San Diego, and you can actually go all the way across the US on the very bottom. If you go up a bit, you have Los Angeles, and that will take you all the way across the US as well. And then above is San Francisco. That's where the gold rush was, the California gold rush in the 1840s, late 1840s, the California gold rush. And what happened was all of these settlers came on their wagons, and these wagons became known as the Oregon Trail. And because these trails were so entrenched, that's where the highway, the transnational highways were built. So that highway, what used to be the Gold Rush Highway, was now turned into a path. It was just a path, now became the interstate, the highway. And in fact, where I was from in Nebraska, which is right in the center, we had what was very famously called Route 66. There are even songs about Route 66. There's a few famous songs calling that, because that's where the settlers went to look for the gold. They passed through Omaha on Route 66. And then at the very north, you can't see it, there's another option. Now, if you notice in the west, you've got these big holes in the middle. That's because you've got lots of mountains. It's really difficult to get through. And that's why when the railroad was finally connected in 1867 in the US, the biggest problem was just going through the mountains. How do you get these railroad tracks built in the mountains? Very difficult, very dangerous, and it took a long time. So when he talks about, I've been on all the highways, this was a period in US history in the 50s and 60s and 70s, basically, where you traveled on the road. When you said, I'm on the road this week, you were literally on the road. You were driving. Everyone had a car. Remember, after World War II, there was one wealthy country, the United States. No one else was wealthy. Everyone else was poor or suffering because of the war. The richest countries were affected by the war, except the US, who supplied the war. So you could have a father with a wife and two children, have one manufacturing job at a factory, working 40 hours a week, providing enough to have a house, a car, and all the amenities to fit into that house. So it was really a wealthy time in the US. We don't have that time now, but it was a time when every middle-class person had a car. And guess what? All you had to do was be willing to work to be middle class, and you could own a car and a house. It was that wealthy at the time. So everyone was driving. So including the musicians, they took their act on the road. Now, Frank Sinatra very famously had a private jet. He was flying his jet everywhere. It's a bit of a tragedy, but I'll tell you, he flew in 1972. He flew his mother to see him. I don't remember, 77. It might have been 19. Someone can check it. 1977. His mother was 80 and flew on his private jet, because he was very famous for having a private jet, and he would offer lots of young ladies to come on the jet and come with him to Las Vegas and have a party after his concert. So he was really a wild child. Now, and a wild man, not just that, but very sadly, on this private jet, his mother and her best friend, she was 80. She loved Vegas. She loved to party. She liked to drink a bit. The plane crashed because the weather was really bad. And so she tragically died actually on one of Sinatra's jets going to hear his concert. Very, very difficult moment, because his mother was everything to Frank. You'll notice as we get later, we talk about his wives. They were really, it was his mother who was sort of the, you know, the person who was the most consistent. Now let's go right back to the lyrics again, doing a lot of lyrics. Every highway, without exemption. They did that because you have to rhyme with mention. But exemption means without exception. Now, this is interesting. The byway. This is an old word. So we have that. So once the highways were built, then we have a word that developed called the byways. So the highways and the byways. The byways were these side roads that you took when you couldn't take the highway. And so along the byways, so the byways, so we have an expression, the highway and the highways and the byways, they went everywhere. That's basically what that means. Now, this is this is an expression we use today. If you bite off more than you can chew, you have taken on too much work. Has this ever happened to you? If you're a teacher, maybe of private lessons, or you're in business, you accept all the offers because you want to make money, and then you realize, uh-oh, I don't have enough time to do all of this. If you've taken on too much work, it means I've bitten off more than I can chew. I just can't finish it all. I just can't do it all. I'm gonna have to drop something. I'm gonna have to quit. Spit it out. We know that you ate it and you spit it out. If you stand tall, when they say stand tall, it's physically standing tall, but metaphorically it means proud. Be proud, stand tall. You didn't win, but stand tall. Be proud of your effort. I had my fill. This is a difficult one. I don't think people will understand this one, so I highlighted it. So I've laughed, I've laughed, I've cried. So he's reflecting back on his life. I've had my fill means I've done it all. I've had a lot of different experiences. I don't have anything that's missing. Now, my share of losing, including my share of losing, and now as tears subside, if something subsides, it gets less. So they stop flowing. They subside, they eventually stop. I find it all amusing. Okay, not is a British term for zero. It means nothing in this case. If not for himself, then he was not, he was nothing. Now, this is interesting and I think a little bit difficult, so let me try to explain it. To say the things he truly feels and not the words of one who kneels. Now, this is a little bit cryptic. Do you know the word cryptic? We have the word crypto, which is very common, and it comes from that. Cryptic is hidden. And this meaning is a little bit cryptic, because if you say what you truly feel, you say it directly. If you don't say it directly, you say it indirectly. And there's a lot of ways to express that. He expresses this very poetically, I think. If you're on your knees, it means probably you're not saying it directly. It's more of a softer position. It's not a position of strength and directness. Now, This is really interesting. The record shows, the record means his life's experiences. I took the blows. This is a blow. This is a boxing term. You took a blow. That's a blow to the head. A blow to the head in boxing can knock you out. But in this case, it means I failed. I've been criticized. I've done things wrong. I've made mistakes. I've took the blows. But in the end, I did it my way. I lived the life I wanted to live. That's what Frank is saying. And I think it's quite interesting. It's a philosophy. Maybe it's not everyone's philosophy, but it's one that he lived by. And we know he lived by it because if you look at his life, and we're going to look at it right here in just a minute, he had 4 wives and many lovers. And so he really did it his way. And if you look here, this was his first wife. This was Nancy. Nancy was his high school sweetheart. She was an amazing lady. I've read, if you know his biography, you know that she was the one he probably should have kept the rest of his life. She was the one who had supported him when he was nothing. He was no one, really, when they met. And, you know, was with him through the, we say through the thick and the thin. If you're with someone through the thick and the thin, it means you're with them in good times and bad times, when they were unsuccessful and when they're successful. And this is quite interesting. And that was Nancy. There's a picture of her when she's older, and they have children together, and that will, there are Sinatras today as a result. His second wife was Ava Gardner, and it's interesting. We're going to look at songs that were inspired by women, and they're all related to Ava. Frank Sinatra lost his mind when he met Ava Gardner. Now, when I say lost his mind, there was so much passion. It was crazy chemistry. And he married her, but he was crazy about her for years before, years after. And guess what? He was crazy. He went crazy in the relationship. He was so jealous because it was such a strong passion. They fought all the time. He was jealous. She was a very famous movie star. And here's one thing that not many people know about. It was because of Ava Gardner that Frank Sinatra's career resurrects. Resurrects means goes up again. He was done. People weren't watching him. His voice had sort of, I don't know, it would just, no one was going to his concerts. No one was inviting him for films. And it was Ava Gardner, who at the time was the #1 box office hit in Hollywood for women. She prevailed along with the mafia. So it was the mafia, his mob friends, and Ava Gardner. They prevailed on the president of CBS or NBC, one of these big shots, to put him in a movie. I think it was From Here to Eternity. I can't remember, but he won an Oscar. And that resurrected his career. And he has Ava Gardner to thank for that. And he thanks her in many ways in songs we'll look at. Then in a very strange episode, he marries an 18 or 19-year-old girl. Now, obviously, he's not 18 or 19, but she's like a baby. And everyone who knew Frank said, this is weird. This is just weird. It didn't last long, 2 years. But there we have it. Mia Farrow became very well known in her own right. In her own right means on her own as an actress. And then finally, he married Barbara, who was a great lady for him. And they were married the last 22 years of his life. He died. She was next to him. She was a very good lady. So the first and the last were quality women for him. The middle two drove him a little bit crazy. So why do I mention his wives? Because women play a big role in Frank's life. If you know some of the details, you'll know about that. That's what connected him and JFK. That's what connected him and a lot of people. But he just was known as having a lot of fun. Now, here is Ava Gardner. I mentioned and he wrote 3 songs about his wives, and they were all related directly or indirectly to her. He went crazy. He just lost it. So we have 3 of them here. You can read about it. I'll send you the PDF if you want, but you can see here after they sort of break up and during and before. He's just really, there's a lot of emotions that are tied to this relationship. And it's because of that it has inspiration, both positively and negatively. You know, when you're really down, these mood swings provide inspiration for musical composition. All right, I'm going to play one more song. Unless we have a question, I'm going to play one more song here. This is a shorter one. Now, I could play I Did It My Way again. We can do it at the end if you want, now that you know some of the lyrics. But let's do one more song, just in case we don't have time. The World We Knew. This is a shorter one and not as long. Oh, I'm sorry. This was a request, by the way. This was a request by one of the listeners. It might have been, I don't remember who requested this. I'm going to send it in the chat. Do you see the chat here? So if you can't hear it, click the link in the chat and play it on mute. Mute your microphone, obviously. Play it along with me. They should have lyrics. So if you need to find the lyrics, oh, there are no lyrics here. I'll show you where the lyrics are. They're right here. Right here, underneath are the lyrics. So turn it on, and then you can go underneath and read the lyrics. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Oh, maybe it is the lyrics are on the screen, maybe. No.
And the sun and the moon seem to be on each road that we took turned into gold. But the dream was too much for you to hold. Over, I keep going over. And the sun and the seem to be on each road that they took, it turned into gold. The dream was too far for the future. Going home.
All right, that's probably not his most famous song, but it was requested by one of you all, and so I wanted to play it. If we look at the meaning, I think it's pretty clear, but we'll just do a few things here. The world we knew, that once you walked beside me, that inconceivable but unbelievable world we knew when we two were in love. Lots about love and relationships in Sinatra's songs. Inconceivable means you can't consider it. You can't even conceive it. You can't imagine it. Every bright neon sign, that is a bright neon sign I've put there, open. Everything else I think is good. One thing maybe, each road that we took turned into gold. If something turns into gold, it means it's successful. And honestly, I don't. Oh, I keep going over the world we knew. If you keep going over something, you're going over it in your mind. You keep thinking about the past. What was? And this is, you know, remembering it, reflecting on it. I keep going over it. All right, we're nearly finished. Let me just show you one more. Oh, we have a question here. Yeah, I'll share the text of the song. I'll share it. I can share it in the chat, actually. Let me share this in the chat right here. Here we go. That's in the chat. Oh, the first one. Yes, I will share the first one in the chat right now. Here we go. Here it is. Oh, it's too long. So let me do half of it here. And then the second half here. All right. Let's discuss Frank Sinatra. Any questions or comments you have? Anything you want to share or discuss? Maybe you have a favorite song. Maybe you want to share one of your favorite songs and why you like it so much. One of my favorite songs, honestly, my favorite song is New York, New York. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I Did It My Way and New York are two of my favorite Sinatra songs.
Yes, I think I would choose both of them. Also New York, New York, because I like so much New York. I was there
We
some
might play
time.
that at the end, actually. I think that's appropriate to end.
Yes, I think it's a lovely song, New York,
Yeah,
and
is.
it
It's very nice.
represents an era, I would say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it is so important. As I said before, at first, the meeting, my way represents a part of my life, my childhood. I think New York represents an important era from not only from Americans but from the whole world.
Yes.
For
For the
the
whole
whole
world. Very
world.
nice. Thank you,
Yeah.
Patrizia. All right, before we play that, any other questions or comments? Or we'll end with New York, New York. We've decided we're going to end with that, but I'm open for questions or comments. Let me get New York up and ready. I'm going to cue it.
Oh, awesome meeting. Love it.
Oh, thank you. Let's see here. New York, New York. I want to do one live because we've not seen him live. I think it's important to see him live. So I think if we don't have any questions, we're going to end this meeting with New York, New York. Oh, I realize now you can't listen. Let me share the link. Sorry. Let me share the link in the chat. So can everyone get that link ready and we'll all play it together.
Now we have a
Here's Frank sort of live, and you can see him perform. He's a bit older at this point, but here we go. Are you ready? Let's begin.
brand new song for you. Brand new. First one. Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes. They are longing to stray. right through the very heart of it. New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. My small town blue, they have drifted away. I'm gonna make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it. Up to you, New York, New York. Wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find number one. All the heat, give all the hit. Things a little. I am about to make a plan, new start of it. That's never alone, New York. You better believe it, baby. If I can make it there, you know it's up to you, New York.
I'm going to end this talk with one thing. I'm not going to play it, but I just want to show you, and I want to show you what's interesting about the United States of America. And boy, we have a very slow internet today. I'm not sure why. So this is, I'll just show you here. Ronald Reagan becomes president of the United States, the 50th president of the United States. Who does he invite for his inauguration, the biggest party celebrating the election? Frank Sinatra, his friend. And this is what I think is very interesting about Frank Sinatra's career. We're ending with this, but I think it's important that you understand why America is a little bit distinct in this sense. This was a man who grew up an immigrant. Italians were not treated equally. I know this because my mother and grandparents are Italian, and I know how they were looked at. And they had a reputation of being lazy, so, and a little bit corrupt. And both of those are probably true, but not for everyone. But what's interesting is, here's a man who grew up Italian, immigrant. His mother didn't speak English when she got here. My grandfather didn't know English. He spoke with an accent. I kept asking my mother, why does Nanu, we called him Nanu, which is like Italian, why does he speak with a funny accent? Because he didn't speak English normally. And my mother said, I'll tell you later, son. So anyway, Italians, okay, Catholics, the United States was not very warm or favorable to Catholics for a long time. So President Kennedy was Catholic, but that's the first US president who was Roman Catholic. And he was friends with mobsters. He was involved with gambling. But yet he was best friends with the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, who loved his songs. This was a man that had such a diverse life, from the worst people in the US to the presidents. And it was just really interesting. And there aren't many people that lived a life that was this diverse, which makes his singing and his career, I think, worth studying, because you learn a lot about how strange America is. Anyway, I want to thank you. I hope you didn't find this presentation strange. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you learned a little bit about English along the way, and about one of our, entertainment icons in the US. He's considered one of our greatest singers. So I thought it was appropriate to start with him. But let me say this. Tomorrow, we're going to upload a survey in the language and grammar section. You can vote on a singer you would like to hear about. Anyone, your favorite singer. And we're going to just look at the votes and see. I'll make an announcement tomorrow, but we're going to do a musical thing every month or so, month and a half, along with film, along with books. We're going to do some things that I think are quite interesting, not for everyone, but for some people. So if you have a favorite singer or group, you can tell us who it is, and maybe we'll select that if there are enough people that are interested. Thank you very much for watching, and see you soon.
Thank you for this.
Thank you.